If you can cross a country in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, what does distance even mean anymore? Tonight, you're going to discover how one railway line quietly reshaped China's economy, its cities, its people, and the future of how humans move across the planet. By the end of this story, you'll understand why this single line is not just steel and speed, but power, pressure, ambition, and risk. This is the story of the Beijing-Shanghai High-Speed Railway. China is a country where distance has always mattered. For centuries, space shaped destiny. Northern capitals ruled, southern cities traded, and the sheer scale of the land dictated who prospered and who waited. Travel between Beijing and Shanghai once took more than a full day by train. It was exhausting, crowded, and uncertain. People slept sitting upright, food ran out, tempers flared, and business decisions were delayed by geography itself. Yet these two cities were everything. Beijing, the political heart, Shanghai, the economic engine. Between them lived nearly a quarter of China's population. Millions of workers, students, traders, officials, and families moving constantly, fighting time, fatigue, and inefficiency. By the early 2000s, something became impossible to ignore. China was growing too fast for its old infrastructure. Roads were jammed, airports were overloaded, conventional railways were stretched beyond their limits. The country faced a choice: slow down or leap forward, and China chose to leap. The idea was simple, almost shocking in its ambition. Build a railway so fast, so reliable, and so efficient that it would rewrite how people think about distance itself. Not a luxury line, not a showcase, a backbone, a national artery. The Beijing-Shanghai High-Speed Railway would be 1,318 kilometers long. It would cut travel time from over 12 hours to less than 5. It would pass through some of the most densely populated, economically critical land on Earth, and it would need to work perfectly, every day, at full capacity. But behind this simple idea was a brutal question: could it actually be done? China had never attempted a project of this scale at this speed under such pressure. High-speed rail technology existed elsewhere, but this would be longer, busier, and heavier than anything before it. The line would cross rivers, plains, soft soils, flood zones, seismic regions, and megacities that never slept. Failure was not an option, delay was unacceptable, and mistakes would be unforgiving. Construction began in 2008, at a moment when the world itself was shaking. A global financial crisis was unfolding. Many countries froze investment. China did the opposite. It poured resources, manpower, and political will into infrastructure, believing that movement creates growth. Hundreds of thousands of workers were mobilized. Engineers worked in rotating shifts. Entire towns woke up to the sound of piling rigs and concrete mixers. Day and night blurred together. One of the first challenges was the ground itself. Large sections of eastern China sit on soft alluvial soil. At high speeds, even a few millimeters of uneven settlement can turn into catastrophic vibration. Trains traveling at 300 kilometers per hour do not forgive imperfections. The track must be almost unnaturally precise. So engineers raised much of the line onto elevated viaducts, long concrete bridges stretching endlessly across farmland and cities. This reduced land acquisition, protected farmland, and allowed near-perfect alignment. But it also created a surreal sight: trains flying above villages like silent white arrows. Another challenge was the bridges. The line would cross more than 200 bridges, including some of the longest railway bridges ever built. These structures had to withstand wind, heat expansion, seismic forces, and the constant pounding of high-speed traffic. Every bolt, every weld, every joint mattered. Then there was signaling. At high speeds, human reaction time is no longer enough. The system had to think faster than the driver. Automatic train control systems were designed to monitor speed, distance, braking curves, and obstacles in real time. If something went wrong, the system would act before a human even understood the danger. This was not just construction, it was choreography. Yet beneath the technical triumphs, pressure was mounting. The schedule was aggressive. Political expectations were immense. The railway was more than infrastructure, it was a symbol. It represented national competence, technological independence, and global confidence. Corners could not be cut. But time could not be extended. As testing began, trains accelerated through the countryside faster than anything China had ever seen. Engineers watched screens in silence, measuring vibrations, temperatures, and tolerances. Every successful run built confidence. Every anomaly triggered emergency meetings. Then, in 2011, something happened that changed everything. A deadly high-speed rail accident occurred on a different line near Wenzhou. Dozens were killed. Public trust was shaken. Questions exploded across the country. Was China moving too fast? Were safety standards compromised? Was ambition blinding caution? The Beijing-Shanghai line was suddenly under a microscope. Construction paused. Inspections intensified, designs were reviewed, operating speeds were reduced. For the first time, doubt entered the conversation. The project that was meant to symbolize confidence now carried the weight of fear. This was the turning point. Behind closed doors, decisions were made that would define the railway's legacy. Speed would no longer be the headline. Reliability would, safety would, trust would. When the Beijing-Shanghai High-Speed Railway finally opened in June 2011, it did so quietly, carefully, and under scrutiny. Trains ran below their maximum design speed. Systems were monitored obsessively. Public messaging shifted from pride to reassurance, and something unexpected happened. People loved it. Passengers discovered a new rhythm of life. Business travelers left after breakfast and returned home for dinner. Students visited family on weekends instead of once a year. Entire cities became reachable in a single morning. Time collapsed. The economic effects were immediate and profound. Cities along the route experienced surges in investment. Office rents rose near stations. Tourism patterns shifted. Job markets expanded beyond local borders. A person could live in one city and work in another hundreds of kilometers away. This railway did not just move people, it redistributed opportunity. Yet success brought its own challenges. Ticket pricing sparked debate. Was high-speed rail only for the middle class? Could it truly serve everyone? Operating costs were enormous. Debt levels were high. Critics questioned long-term sustainability, but ridership kept climbing. Year after year, the line carried more passengers than any other high-speed railway on Earth. Hundreds of millions, then billions. The system matured. Operating speeds increased again. Maintenance routines became surgical in their precision. Trains arrived on time so consistently that delays became newsworthy events. The railway became invisible, not because it was unimpressive, but because it worked, and that may be its greatest achievement. Today, the Beijing-Shanghai High-Speed Railway is no longer just a line on a map. It is a case study. Other countries study it, debate it, and measure themselves against it. Some admire the scale, others question the model. But no one ignores it. It asks an uncomfortable question of the modern world. What happens when infrastructure stops reacting to demand and starts shaping it? The railway altered how China plans cities, designs housing, schedules work, and imagines distance. It normalized speed, it raised expectations, it made waiting feel obsolete, but it also reminds us of something deeper. Progress is never just about technology. It is about choices, about risk, about learning from mistakes, about knowing when to slow down even while moving fast. In the final minutes of this journey, consider this. The Beijing-Shanghai High-Speed Railway is not the fastest line ever built. It is not the longest. It is not the most luxurious. But it may be the most consequential, because it proved that a nation could rewire its own sense of space in a single decade. That time itself could be negotiated. That distance could be redesigned. Steel did not just connect Beijing and Shanghai. It connected ambition with responsibility, speed with restraint, power with patience. And in doing so, it quietly changed what the future expects from infrastructure and from us. Because once you've experienced a world where distance no longer controls your life, there is no going back.